Swiss A220-300 cockpit landing amidst fog at Milan Malpensa. I don't care about your procedures. My daughter is dying, and I need to get off this plane now. Sir, I understand your urgency, but we're on final approach in zero visibility conditions, and your safety depends on you sitting down immediately. The man's face was red, veins bulging at his temples as he stood in the aisle of the Swiss Airbus A220-300, gripping the headrest in front of him. Outside the small oval windows, there was nothing but an impenetrable wall of gray fog. The aircraft shuddered slightly as it descended through the thick soup of moisture that had engulfed Milan Malpensa Airport that November afternoon. Captain Elena Hoffmann's voice had come through the cabin speakers with professional calm, but in the cockpit, her eyes were locked on the head-up display showing the ghostly green symbology of the approach path. The runway was somewhere below them in that fog, invisible, waiting. Her hands rested steady on the controls, but her heart hammered against her ribs. 22 years of flying, and this was shaping up to be one of the most challenging landings of her career. 200 feet, First Officer Marcus Weber called out, his young voice tight with concentration. In the cabin, Senior Flight Attendant Anna Rossi moved toward the standing passenger, her hand reaching out to his shoulder. "Signor, please," she said, her Italian accent softening the urgency in her words. "We are almost on the ground, but you must sit down. The captain cannot land safely if you don't understand." The man's voice cracked, desperation replacing anger. "My daughter, she's at Niguarda hospital. They called me in Zurich. They said I might not make it in time." The aircraft dropped suddenly through an air pocket, and the man stumbled backward. Anna caught him, her experienced hands steadying him even as her own body absorbed the turbulence. Through the cockpit door, which regulations required remain locked, Elena heard the commotion but couldn't turn around. Not now. Not at 150 feet with visibility at absolute minimums. 100 feet. "Runway in sight," Marcus announced, and Elena saw it too, the precious white lights of the runway edge markers materializing out of the murk like a corridor through clouds. But let's go back to how this all started. It was just 3 hours earlier when Elena Hoffmann walked through the crew briefing room at Zurich Airport, her crisp white captain's shirt pressed to perfection, 4 gold stripes gleaming on her shoulders. The morning had begun like any other November Tuesday. Elena arrived at the Swiss Operations Center at 5:30 hours, her travel bag rolling smoothly behind her as she made her way through the familiar corridors. At 54 years old, she had flown this route Zurich to Milan Malpensa, more times than she could count. It was a short hop, barely 45 minutes of flying time, the kind of route that newer pilots sometimes dismissed as routine. But Elena never dismissed any flight as routine. That attitude had kept her and her passengers safe through 2 decades of command. "Morning, Captain," Marcus Weber said as she entered the briefing room. He was already there, headset on, reviewing the flight plan on his tablet. Marcus was 32, eager, technically brilliant, and sometimes a little too rigid in his interpretation of procedures. He had been her first officer for 6 months now, and she was still teaching him that flying was as much art as science. "Good morning, Marcus," Elena replied, setting down her coffee. "What does the weather look like?" Marcus pulled up the meteorological data, and his expression tightened. "Not good, Captain. Milan is reporting fog moving in. Current visibility is 4,000 meters, but it's deteriorating. Forecast shows it dropping to Cat III minimums by our arrival time. RVR could go down to 300 meters or less. Cat III Category 3 approach conditions. It meant visibility so poor that the aircraft would rely almost entirely on its automated systems and the pilot's instrument training. The A220-300 was fully capable of autoland operations, but it still required intense concentration and precise procedures. Elena leaned over to study the data. The fog was rolling in from the Po Valley, a thick blanket of moisture that would reduce Milan Malpensa to near-zero visibility. She had landed in fog before many times, but each approach demanded respect. "All right," she said. "We'll need to brief for a Cat III approach. ILS runway 35R, make sure we review missed approach procedures. If we can't get in, we'll divert to Turin." Marcus nodded, already pulling up the approach plates on his tablet. This was what he did well: the technical preparation, the by-the-book precision. I'll calculate the additional fuel requirement for the alternate. As they worked through the briefing, the dispatcher brought in the passenger manifest. Full flight today, he said. 135 souls on board. We have one passenger who requested priority boarding medical priority. Name is David Castellano, seat 12F. Elena glanced at the note. Medical priority usually meant someone with a mobility issue or a recent medical procedure. Any special requirements? The booking shows he's traveling to see family. Hospital visit. No special equipment needed, but he was insistent about making a connection. Connection? Marcus looked up. This is Milan Malpensa, final destination for most passengers. Apparently he needs to get to Niguarda Hospital urgently, the dispatcher explained. He was asking if we could arrange priority disembarkation. Elena made a mental note. Someone in a hurry, under stress. She would ask the cabin crew to keep an eye on him. By 6:45 hours, Elena and Marcus were conducting their walk-around inspection of the aircraft. The A220-300 sat at the gate like a sleek white bird, its nose pointing toward the gray November sky. This was the newest addition to the Swiss fleet, a marvel of modern aviation engineering. Bombardier, now Airbus Canada, had designed the aircraft to be fuel-efficient, quiet, and perfect for short to medium-haul routes. Elena loved flying the A220. It handled beautifully, with responsive controls and advanced avionics that made precision approaches possible, even in challenging conditions. The Pratt & Whitney PW1500G geared turbofan engines provided excellent power with remarkable fuel efficiency. She ran her hand along the smooth fuselage as she walked beneath the wing, checking the leading edges for ice or debris. Everything looked perfect. The ground crew had done their job well. Inside the cabin, Anna Rossi was conducting her own preparations. At 61 years old, Anna was the most senior flight attendant in the Swiss fleet, a woman who had seen everything during her 40 years in aviation. She moved through the cabin with practiced efficiency, checking emergency equipment, ensuring everything was secure. Anna had started her career with Swissair in 1984, back when flying was still glamorous and passengers dressed up for flights. She had survived the airline's bankruptcy and rebirth as Swiss, and she had no intention of retiring anytime soon. This job was her life, her passion, and her purpose. "Morning, Anna," said Julia, one of the younger flight attendants. "Did you hear about the fog in Milan?" "I heard," Anna replied, her voice calm. "Captain Hoffmann is excellent in bad weather. We'll be fine." She had flown with Elena many times and trusted her completely. As the boarding door opened, passengers began streaming in. Anna greeted each one with a warm smile, her eyes automatically scanning for anyone who might need extra attention. Years of experience had taught her to spot the nervous flyers, the difficult passengers, the ones traveling under stress. Then David Castellano appeared in the doorway. He was a man in his mid-50s, well-dressed in an expensive suit, but his face was drawn and pale. His eyes had the hollow look of someone who hadn't slept, and his hands trembled slightly as he handed Anna his boarding pass. "Seat 12F, Anna said gently. "Window seat on the right side. Let me help you with your bag." "I can manage," David said curtly, then seemed to catch himself. "Sorry, I need to get to Milan quickly." "I understand," Anna said, her voice full of genuine compassion. "We'll have you there shortly. Is there anything I can get you once we're airborne?" David shook his head and moved down the aisle, his jaw clenched tight. Anna watched him go, making a mental note. This was a man carrying a heavy burden. By 7:15 hours, all passengers were seated and the cabin door was closed. Elena received clearance from Zurich Tower, and the A220's engines spooled up with their characteristic quiet hum. The aircraft was so much quieter than older jets' passengers in the cabin could have normal conversations even at takeoff power. Swiss 741 cleared for pushback. The ground controller's voice came through Elena's headset. "Cleared for pushback, Swiss 741, Marcus acknowledged. The tug pushed them back from the gate, and Elena started the auxiliary power unit, running through the pre-start checklist with Marcus. Everything was crisp, professional, synchronized. They worked well together despite their different approaches to flying. "Before start checklist complete," Marcus announced. "Starting engines," Elena said, moving the engine start switches. The Pratt & Whitney engines came to life with a smooth whine building to a steady rumble. All parameters showed green. As they taxied toward runway 16, Elena listened to the automatic terminal information service. Zurich information echo, wind 160 at 8 knots. Visibility 10 kilometers, few clouds at 3,000 feet, temperature 6 degrees, dew point 4 degrees, altimeter 3018. Perfect conditions in Zurich. It was hard to believe that just 200 miles south, Milan was disappearing into fog. They held short of the runway while a Lufthansa A320 rotated and climbed away into the morning sky. Then it was their turn. Swiss 741, cleared for takeoff, runway 16, wind 160 at 8 knots. Cleared for takeoff, Swiss 741, Marcus replied. Elena advanced the thrust levers, and the A220 surged forward, accelerating smoothly down the runway. The world outside the cockpit windows blurred as they gathered speed. At 140 knots, Marcus called, V1, the decision speed they were committed to flight. At 152 knots, rotate. Elena pulled back gently on the side stick, and the nose rose. The rumble of wheels on concrete ceased as they lifted into the air. Zurich fell away beneath them, the city and lake spreading out in miniature. Positive rate, Marcus confirmed, watching the altimeter climb. Gear up, Elena commanded, and Marcus raised the landing gear lever. The 3 green lights extinguished as the wheels tucked into their wells. They climbed through the morning sky, the Alps visible to the east, their peaks white with early snow. It was a beautiful day for flying up here. But ahead, somewhere beyond those mountains, the fog was waiting. Sir, you must sit down. But David wasn't thinking clearly anymore. The stress, the fear, the desperate need to reach his daughter had overwhelmed his judgment. He started toward the front of the cabin. I need to get off this plane immediately, he shouted. How long until we land? Can't this go faster? 150 feet, Marcus called out, his eyes locked on the instruments. He heard the commotion but couldn't look away. Anna rushed toward David. Sir, please, we're landing right now. You must sit down. I don't care about your procedures. My daughter is dying, and I need to get off this plane now. Elena's voice came through the speakers, penetrating the chaos. Sir, I understand your urgency, but we're on final approach in zero visibility conditions, and your safety depends on you sitting down immediately. 100 feet, runway in sight. Through the fog, like ghosts, the runway edge lights appeared. White lights marking the sides of the runway, beautiful and precious and barely visible in the thick soup of moisture. David stumbled as the aircraft dropped through a pocket of turbulence. Anna caught him, her strong hands steadying him. Senor, please. You don't understand, David's voice cracked. My daughter, she's at Niguarda Hospital. They called me in Zurich. They said I might not make it in time. 50 feet. Marcus's voice was tight. Autoland engaged. The aircraft flared automatically, the nose pitching up slightly as the main wheels prepared to touch down. Elena's hands hovered over the controls, ready to take over if the system failed, but it didn't. The main wheels kissed the runway with barely a bump. Perfect touchdown. Speed brakes, Marcus said, and the spoilers deployed automatically, killing the lift and putting the aircraft's weight on the wheels. Elena took manual control of the brakes, applying them smoothly as they decelerated. The nose wheels settled to the runway. Through the fog, the centerline lights glowed dimly, guiding them down the runway. 60 knots, Marcus called. Auto brake disarming, Elena said, taking full manual control. She steered carefully, following the centerline lights through the fog. The aircraft slowed to taxi speed, and Elena breathed out. They were down. Safe. Swiss 741, exit at Delta 4 when able. Contact ground on 121.9. Delta 4 1219, Swiss 741. Anna had guided David back to his seat, her arm around his shoulders. We're on the ground, she said gently. You're going to see Sophia. David was crying now, great heaving sobs of relief and fear and exhaustion. I'm sorry, he gasped. I'm so sorry, I couldn't think, I wasn't thinking. It's all right, Anna said, kneeling beside his seat. Other passengers were staring, but she didn't care. You're under terrible stress. No one blames you. As the aircraft taxied through the fog toward the gate, David pulled out his phone with shaking hands. I need to call the hospital. I need to let them know I'm here. In just a moment, Anna said. Wait until we're at the gate, then I'll help you. We'll make sure you get to Niguarda as quickly as possible. In the cockpit, Elena and Marcus were completing the after-landing checklist, but Elena's mind was on the passenger in 12 as she pressed the intercom. "Anna, is everything all right back there?" "Yes, Captain, everything is under control. I'll explain after we park." Elena guided the A220 through the fog, following the ground controller's directions. The terminal building materialized out of the murk like a ship emerging from mist. Gate B21. Home. She brought the aircraft to a stop on the parking mark with practiced precision. Engines shut down. Seatbelt sign off. The familiar ding as passengers immediately stood and began retrieving their bags. But David Castellano remained seated, his face in his hands, Anna beside him. Elena emerged from the cockpit, still wearing her cap, and walked down the aisle. Passengers were moving toward the exit, but she stopped at row 12. "Mr. Castellano," she said softly. David looked up, his eyes red. "I'm so sorry, Captain. I endangered the flight. I wasn't thinking. I was just so scared." Elena sat down across the aisle from him. Behind her, Marcus was dealing with paperwork and shutdown procedures, and the cabin was emptying. "Tell me about Sophia," Elena said. David pulled out his phone again, showing her the photo. "She's my only child. Her mother died when Sophia was 12. It's been just the two of us. She's the best thing in my life, and now..." He couldn't finish. "What happened?" Elena asked gently. "Car accident yesterday afternoon. She was driving home from school. A truck ran a red light, head-on collision." David's voice was mechanical, reciting facts to keep from breaking down completely. "They did emergency surgery to relieve pressure on her brain, but the doctors said the next 24 hours are critical." Elena glanced at Anna, who nodded silently. This was real. This was a father's worst nightmare playing out in real time. "Mr. Castellano," Elena said, "I'm going to help you get to that hospital. Anna, do we have the passenger manifest?" Anna already had her tablet out. "Yes, Captain. Call Niguarda Hospital. Tell them David Castellano is on his way and he's family for Sophia Castellano in neurosurgery. Then call our operations center and arrange a priority car service, not a taxi, our own service. Direct to Niguarda. Tell them it's emergency medical family priority authorized by the captain." "Captain, I can't ask you to," David started. "You're not asking, I'm deciding." "Your daughter needs you and we're going to get you there." Elena stood. "Can you walk?" Yes, I can walk." "Then let's go." Elena led David through the jet bridge, Anna close behind still making calls. Marcus caught up with them, pulling both his and Elena's flight bags. "Captain, what's happening?" "Family emergency," Elena said briefly. "I'm expediting this passenger to the hospital." They moved through the terminal, Elena's captain's uniform and badge opening doors and parting crowds. Security personnel saw her approaching and stood aside. Elena Hoffmann was known at Malpensa, respected. When she said something was urgent, people listened. A black Swiss service car was already pulling up at the terminal exit when they emerged. Anna had worked her magic. "Niguarda Hospital, Neurosurgery Department," Elena told the driver. "Quickly, please, but safely." David climbed into the back seat, then paused. "Captain Hoffmann, I don't know how to thank you." "After what I did on the plane, what you did was love your daughter," Elena said. "Now go to her, and Mr. Castellano, stay strong. Fighter pilots have a saying, never give up when you're ahead, never give up when you're behind, and never give up. She needs you to be strong." The car pulled away into the fog, and Elena stood watching until the taillights disappeared. Marcus was beside her. That went against several procedures, Captain." "I know," Elena said. "Note it in your report if you feel you must, but I'd do it again." Anna joined them. "The hospital said they'll be watching for him. His daughter is still conscious." Elena nodded slowly. Then, to both of them, "That fog landing was perfect. You both did excellent work. Marcus, your systems management was flawless. Anna, your handling of a difficult situation was exactly right. I'm proud to fly with both of you." They stood together in the terminal, an unlikely trio bonded by profession and circumstance. Outside, the fog continued to swirl, canceling flights, delaying travelers, making Milan Malpensa one of the most challenging airports in Europe that day. But Swiss 741 had made it through. Elena and Marcus had a 3-hour layover before their return flight to Zurich. They completed their paperwork in the crew room, both of them unusually quiet. The adrenaline of the approach was wearing off, leaving that hollow feeling that always came after intense focus. "Captain," Marcus said finally, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. When you have situations like that, a disturbance in the cabin during a critical phase of flight, how do you stay focused? I heard what was happening, and part of my mind wanted to turn around to see what was going on. But I knew I couldn't take my eyes off the instruments. Elena considered her answer carefully. This was important, maybe the most important lesson she could teach him. You trust your crew, she said. Anna is a professional. I knew she would handle it. My job was the approach. Your job was monitoring systems and callouts. Her job was the cabin. We each do our part and we trust each other to do it well. That's what crew coordination means. But what if there's always what if, Marcus? What if the passenger had become violent? What if he'd tried to open a door? Then Anna would have called for help, and we would have had to make decisions. But she didn't, so we didn't. You have to trust your instruments, trust your training, and trust your crew. Second-guessing in the moment gets people killed. Marcus absorbed this. Is that what you meant earlier about art and science? The science is the procedures, but the art is knowing when to trust. Elena smiled. You're learning. The art is also knowing when not to trust, when something doesn't feel right even if everything looks right. But that comes with experience. Anna joined them, her phone in her hand. I just got a text from David Castellano. He wanted me to have your contact information in case there's news. Any update on Sophia? Elena asked. She's stable for now. The doctors say the next few hours will tell. Her father is with her. They sat in silence for a moment, each thinking about David and Sophia, about families and emergencies, about how fragile life could be. You know, Anna said softly, I've been flying for 40 years. I've seen passengers at their worst drunk, angry, entitled, cruel. But I've also seen them at their most vulnerable. That man today, he wasn't trying to cause trouble. He was just a father terrified of losing his child. How did you know? Marcus asked. How did you know it wasn't just someone being difficult? Anna tapped her chest over her heart. You feel it. Some passengers are angry because they're used to getting their way. Some are anxious because they don't fly often. Some are grieving or scared or carrying burdens we can't see. After 40 years, I can usually tell the difference. And when you can't tell, Marcus pressed. Then I err on the side of compassion, Anna said simply. It costs me nothing to be kind. But it might mean everything to them. Elena looked at this woman who had become her friend over many flights together. Anna Rossi represented everything good about this profession, the service, the empathy, the quiet dignity of doing a difficult job well. Anna, Elena said, you should teach a class for new flight attendants. You have wisdom that can't be found in any manual. Anna laughed, a warm sound. Who wants to listen to an old woman talk about feelings? They want to know about safety procedures and emergency equipment. They can learn procedures from anyone, Elena countered. But what you did today, recognizing that man's pain, sitting with him, calling ahead to the hospital, getting him in that car, that's what makes the difference between just moving passengers and actually caring for people. 2 hours later, Elena's phone buzzed. An unknown number. She answered. Captain Hoffmann, this is David Castellano. Elena gestured for Marcus and Anna to come close so they could hear. Mr. Castellano, how is Sophia? His voice was thick with emotion. She's awake, really awake. The doctors say the swelling is going down. They think she's going to make it. They said it's still early, but the signs are good. Elena closed her eyes, relief washing through her. That's wonderful news. I was able to talk to her. She knew who I was. She said, hi, Papa, and she squeezed my hand. David was crying now, but they were tears of hope. I got here in time because of you, because of all of you. If you hadn't got me on that car, if you hadn't called ahead, I might have missed these precious hours with her. I'm just glad we could help, Elena said. Give Sophia our best wishes for a complete recovery. I will, and Captain, that landing in the fog, I'm sorry for what I said. You were right. You got us down safely. You're a miracle worker. After David hung up, the 3 crew members sat together in the quiet crew room. Around them, other pilots and flight attendants came and went, dealing with delays caused by the fog, but their little corner felt separate from all of that. Days like this remind me why I love this job, Anna said. Marcus looked thoughtful. I always thought flying was about the technical skill, mastering the aircraft, the procedures, the systems. That's what they teach us. That's part of it, Elena agreed, but only part. We're not just operating machines. We're transporting people with lives, with stories, with emergencies and celebrations and ordinary moments. Today we carried a father to his dying daughter. Last week I flew a couple to their honeymoon. Tomorrow I'll fly business people to meetings and tourists to vacations and students back to school. Every passenger has a reason for being on our aircraft. I never thought about it that way, Marcus admitted. That's because you're young and brilliant and you think flying is about perfection, Elena said, not unkindly. And yes, we must be technically perfect. That fog landing required absolute precision, but it also required understanding that we had a man in the cabin going through hell, and we had to get him down safely despite his panic. You could have diverted to Turin, Marcus pointed out. The weather was below minimums for most of the approach. You could have justified a diversion. Elena nodded slowly. Yes, I could have, and if the conditions had been any worse, I would have. But we were legal for Cat Eib, the aircraft was performing perfectly, and I felt that we could make it. So we did, for Sophia, for David, for all the passengers who needed to be in Milan today. That's the art, Marcus said, understanding dawning. Knowing when to push and when to back off, when to follow the book and when to use judgment. Now you're getting it, Elena said with a smile. Anna's phone buzzed again. She read the message and smiled. David says Sophia is asking for ice cream. Apparently that's a good sign. They laughed, and the sound was warm and genuine. Outside, the fog was finally starting to lift. Through the crew room windows, they could see other aircraft moving on the taxiways, resuming normal operations. Elena stood and stretched. We should head to the gate. Time to take another load of passengers home. The return flight to Zurich was scheduled to depart at 1500 hours. The fog had cleared enough that visibility was back to normal minimums, and the aircraft was fueled and ready. As Elena and Marcus did their walk-around inspection, Elena noticed Marcus paying more attention to the aircraft itself, not just checking boxes on a list, but really looking at the machine they were about to trust with their lives and the lives of their passengers. She's beautiful, isn't she? Elena said, running her hand along the fuselage again. I never really looked at it that way before, Marcus admitted. It was just an aircraft, a very capable one, but still just a machine. It's more than that, Elena said. This aircraft is the result of thousands of hours of engineering, testing, refinement. Every rivet, every system, every line of code in the flight computers, all of it designed to keep us safe. But it's also been trusted by thousands of passengers with their lives. That's sacred, Marcus. That's responsibility. They climbed the stairs to the cabin where Anna and her crew were preparing for boarding. The cabin had been cleaned, restocked, checked. Everything was ready. A young family boarded first parents with 2 small children. The mother looked nervous. First time flying with the little ones, Anna asked kindly. Is it that obvious? The mother said with a nervous laugh. I'm terrified they'll cry the whole way and disturb everyone. Children cry sometimes, Anna said simply. That's what they do. Don't worry, most passengers understand. And if anyone complains, they can talk to me. She winked at the children, making them giggle. Elena watched from the cockpit door, observing. This was Anna at her best, putting people at ease, making them feel cared for. It was easy to forget, in all the focus on safety and procedures, that for many passengers, flying was stressful or frightening. The elderly couple who settled into the exit row needed extra time stowing their bags. A businessman worked on his laptop even before takeoff. A young woman traveling alone kept checking her phone anxiously. Each of them had a story, a reason for this journey. And it was Elena's job, her sacred responsibility, to get all of them safely home. Before start checklist, Marcus said, and they began the familiar routine. But now Marcus understood it differently. These weren't just procedural steps. They were promises. Promises to the passengers that they would be vigilant, competent, professional. The engines started smoothly. Clearance came through. They taxied out to runway 35R, the same runway they had landed on hours earlier in the fog. Swiss 742, cleared for takeoff, runway 35R, cleared for takeoff, Swiss 742. Elena advanced the thrust levers, and the A220 accelerated down the runway. The moment of rotation, the liftoff, the climb into the clear autumn sky, it never got old. This was freedom. This was flight. They climbed away from Milan, leaving the Po Valley and its fog behind. The Alps appeared ahead, magnificent in the afternoon sun, their peaks gleaming white. Beautiful day, Marcus commented. Every day is beautiful from up here, Elena replied. At cruising altitude, Elena reflected on the day's events. The challenging approach, the distressed passenger, the successful landing, the happy outcome for Sophia. These were the moments that defined a career, not the perfect routine flights, but the ones that tested you, pushed you, reminded you why you did this job. Her phone buzzed. She checked it against regulations, but they were level and stable. Another message from David. Sophia spoke in full sentences. Doctors are amazed. Thank you for everything. Elena showed the message to Marcus and Anna. That's our happy ending for today, she said. Do you think we really made a difference? Marcus asked. If we diverted to Turin, he still would have gotten to Milan eventually. Hours later, Anna pointed out. Maybe too late. Those hours might have been critical. Elena considered the question seriously. I don't know if we made the difference between Sophia living or dying. The surgeons did that. But we made the difference between a father being alone in his worst moment or being with his daughter. That matters, Marcus. That always matters. They flew on through the afternoon sky, three professionals bonded by shared experience. Below them, Switzerland appeared, the familiar landscape of lakes and valleys and mountains. Home. The landing at Zurich was smooth and routine, the kind of landing that passengers barely noticed. No drama, no fog, just competent professionalism bringing 135 people safely to their destination. As passengers deplaned, several paused to thank the crew. The nervous mother with the young children stopped to tell Anna that the children had been angels. The elderly couple thanked Elena for a smooth flight. The businessman barely looked up from his phone. Each reaction was normal, expected. None of them knew about the fog landing earlier, about David and Sophia, about the drama and relief and hope of the day. But that was all right. Elena, Marcus, and Anna knew. They had lived it together. In the crew room, filling out final paperwork, Marcus said, Captain, I learned more today than I have in the past 6 months. What did you learn? Elena asked, curious. That being a good pilot isn't just about flying the aircraft perfectly. It's about understanding the bigger picture, the people, the stakes, the responsibility. He paused. I'm going to be a different kind of pilot now. Elena smiled. Good, but don't forget you still need to be technically perfect. That comes first. Everything else builds on that foundation. I understand. Anna joined them, her flight bag packed and ready. I'm going home to my husband and a large glass of wine, she announced. Today earned it. Today definitely earned it, Elena agreed. Anna, thank you for how you handled Mr. Castellano. That situation could have gone very badly. That's what 40 years teaches you, Anna said. How to see the person behind the behavior. They walked out of the airport together into the cool November evening. The sun was setting behind the Alps, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Aircraft continued to land and take off, the rhythm of aviation never stopping. Elena drove home to her apartment in Zurich, the city lights welcoming and familiar. She had been flying for 22 years, and she intended to fly for many more. Because days like today, challenging, meaningful, consequential, reminded her why she loved this profession. Her phone buzzed one more time as she unlocked her door. David again. Sophia asked me to thank the captain who brought her papa to her. She wants to meet you someday. Elena typed back. I would be honored. Tell her to focus on getting better, and give her my best wishes. She set her phone down and looked out her window at the city below. Somewhere out there, families were eating dinner, children were doing homework, couples were settling in for the evening. Ordinary moments that were actually extraordinary because they were shared with people you loved. And somewhere in Milan, David Castellano sat beside his daughter's hospital bed, holding her hand, grateful for every moment. Swiss Flight 741 had carried 135 souls from Zurich to Milan that morning. Every one of them had arrived safely, thanks to excellent training, advanced technology, and 3 professionals who understood that their job was sacred. But one passenger, one father, one daughter, would remember that flight for the rest of their lives. 3 days later, Elena was checking her schedule for the following week when her phone rang. Operations Center. Captain Hoffmann, we have an unusual request. A patient at Niguarda Hospital in Milan, a Sofia Castellano, has asked if you might be able to visit during your next Milan layover. Apparently you made quite an impression on her father. Elena smiled. Tell her I'd be delighted. When is my next Milan trip? Thursday. You have a 4-hour layover. Perfect. Set it up, please. Thursday arrived with clear skies and perfect flying weather. Elena and Marcus flew the morning flight to Milan without incident, the kind of routine operation that was actually the norm in aviation, though less dramatic than fog landings. During the layover, Elena took a taxi to Niguarda Hospital. She was still in uniform, and staff members stared as she walked through the corridors following directions to the neurosurgery ward. David Castellano met her outside Sophia's room. His face had transformed since their first meeting, the haunted desperation replaced by exhausted relief and cautious hope. "Captain Hoffmann," he said, shaking her hand warmly. "Thank you for coming. Sophia has been asking about you every day. How is she doing?" "Better than the doctors expected. They say her recovery is remarkable. She'll need months of rehabilitation, but they believe she'll make a full recovery." Elena felt a profound sense of relief and gratitude. That's wonderful news. David led her into the room. Sophia was sitting up in bed, her head wrapped in bandages, monitors beeping softly around her, but her eyes were bright and alert. "Sophia," David said softly, "this is Captain Hoffmann, the pilot who brought me to you." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she said, her voice weak but clear. "Papa told me what you did, how you landed in the fog, how you got him here quickly." Elena sat in the chair beside the bed. "Your father is a very determined man. He wasn't going to let anything stop him from getting to you. He told me how he panicked on the plane," Sophia said. "He feels terrible about it." "He was under enormous stress," Elena said simply. "Anyone would have reacted the same way. What matters is that he's here with you now." They talked for 20 minutes carefully because Sophia tired easily. She told Elena about her teaching, about her second-grade students who had made her get well cards. She talked about her memories of the accident, fragmented and confusing. She talked about her dreams of going back to work someday. Elena listened, asked gentle questions, and marveled at this young woman's resilience. Finally, Sophia said, "Captain, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "What was it like landing in that fog? Could you see anything?" Elena considered how to answer. "The visibility was very low, only 300 meters. For most of the approach, we couldn't see anything outside the cockpit. We relied entirely on our instruments and the aircraft's automated systems." "Weren't you scared?" "No," Elena said honestly. "I was focused. When you're flying, fear is a luxury you can't afford. You have to trust your training, your aircraft, and your crew. We had all three that day." "I want to fly someday," Sophia said suddenly. "I mean, as a passenger. I want to go somewhere far away and see the world." "You will," Elena assured her. "And when you do, you'll remember that flying is one of the safest ways to travel. What happened to you was a car accident, a terrible tragedy, but not related to aviation at all." Sophia smiled. "I know, but I also know that when I fly, I'll think about you and my father and that foggy day. I'll think about how people can be scared and brave at the same time." Elena reached out and gently squeezed Sophia's hand. "That's wisdom most people take years to learn. You've learned it early." As Elena prepared to leave, David walked her to the elevator. "I can't thank you enough," he said. "You changed the trajectory of the worst day of my life. You gave me hope when I had none." "You would have gotten here eventually," Elena said. "We just helped you get here faster." "Those hours mattered," David insisted. "Being with Sophia when she woke up, holding her hand, letting her know I was there, I'll never forget that gift you gave me." Elena thought about this on the taxi ride back to the airport. Had they really made that much difference? Or would events have unfolded roughly the same way regardless of their actions? But then she realized it didn't matter. They had done what they could with the information and resources they had. They had shown compassion when it was needed. They had gotten a father to his dying daughter's bedside. That was enough. That would always be enough. Back at the airport, Marcus was waiting in the crew room. "How was your visit?" he asked. "Inspiring," Elena said. "That young woman has incredible strength." They flew back to Zurich in comfortable companionship, two professionals who had shared something meaningful and learned from it. Over the following months, Elena occasionally received updates from David. Sophia was progressing well in rehabilitation. She had returned home. She was planning to go back to teaching in the fall. Her recovery continued to amaze her doctors. And then, nearly a year after that foggy November day, Elena received an invitation. Sophia Castellano was getting married to a man she had met during her rehabilitation, and she wanted Captain Elena Hoffmann to attend the wedding as an honored guest. Elena stood in a beautiful garden in Milan on a sunny September afternoon, watching Sophia walk down the aisle with her father. The young woman was radiant, healthy, showing no signs of the trauma she had endured. David caught Elena's eye as he walked past, and he nodded a gesture of profound gratitude and friendship. At the reception, Sophia sought Elena out. "I'm so glad you came," she said. I wanted you to see that I'm okay, that the story had a happy ending. I can see that, Elena said. You're beautiful and strong and radiant. I think about that day often, Sophia said. About how close I came to dying, about how my father fought to get to me, about how you and your crew helped him. Changed how I see the world. How do you see it? Elena asked. I see that most people are good, that strangers will help you when you need it, that professionals take their responsibilities seriously, that even in the worst moments there are people working to make things better. Sophia smiled. I teach that to my students now. I tell them that when bad things happen, good people step up. Elena felt tears prickling her eyes. That's a beautiful lesson. It's one you taught me, Sophia said simply. As Elena flew home that evening as a passenger this time, letting someone else do the work, she reflected on her career. She had flown thousands of flights, carried hundreds of thousands of passengers, logged tens of thousands of hours in the air. Most of those flights were routine, perfect, boring, exactly as they should be. But just a few mattered in ways that transcended the technical aspect of flying. A fog landing in Milan, a panicked father, a dying daughter who didn't die. A wedding in a garden. These were the moments that justified all the training, all the studying, all the early mornings and challenging weather and bureaucratic frustrations. These were the moments when being a pilot meant more than just operating an aircraft. It meant being part of someone's story, someone's happy ending. Elena Hoffmann would fly for another 12 years before finally retiring at age 66. She would train dozens of younger pilots, teaching them not just the technical skills, but the wisdom that came from decades of experience. Marcus Weber would go on to become a captain himself, known for his technical excellence, but also for his compassionate leadership. He would tell the story of that foggy day in Milan to his own first officers, using it to teach them about judgment and responsibility. Anna Rossi would retire 2 years after the Milan incident, celebrated by her colleagues for her 42 years of service and her impact on countless passengers and crew members. And David and Sofia Castellano would never forget the crew of Swiss Flight 741, the professionals who landed an aircraft in impossible conditions and helped reunite a family in their darkest hour. Years later, when Sofia's first child was born, she named her daughter Elena. Thank you for listening. If this story touched you, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Remember that behind every flight, there are professionals working to keep you safe, and passengers with stories that might need our compassion and understanding. Fly safe and cherish every moment with those you love.